My husband bought a Dashcam for insurance purposes. It recorded him and my cousin planning to drain our account and flee to Dubai. I was sitting at the kitchen table in my bathrobe, looking for last year's tax return, when I heard my husband's voice coming out of my laptop, laughing about my body with my cousin while I was asleep upstairs in the bed we shared. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just turned the volume up. His name is Daniel. He's 34. He sells commercial real estate, which means he drives a lot, client sites, property walkthroughs, cross-town meetings that always seem to run late. He bought the Dashcam 6 weeks ago, came home with it in a box like it was Christmas morning, and spent an entire Saturday afternoon zip-tying wires under the dashboard and talking me through the specs like I had asked. It's a 4K dual lens, he said, head half buried under the steering column, front-facing for the road and interior cabin. Full audio. Auto syncs to the drive whenever it connects to the home Wi-Fi. Insurance purposes, babe. One fender bender and you're fighting the other driver's dashcam footage in court. This way we've got our own. I nodded. I brought him a coffee. I went back inside and forgot about it almost immediately. The way you forget about appliances once they're installed. The thing exists. It serves a function. It stops being interesting. I am Sarah. I'm 31. I'm an accountant, which is relevant, because accountants are detail people. We notice things that don't line up. We follow paper trails. We don't let discrepancies sit. I just hadn't thought to look for one. Daniel and I have been married for 4 years. We met through mutual friends at a birthday party. My friend Danny's, actually, which is a detail that will become quietly ironic by the end of this. He was charming in the way that men in sales are charming, attentive, funny, good at making you feel like the most interesting person in the room. I fell for it completely and without apology, because at 27 I wasn't looking for a project, I was looking for a partner, and Daniel looked like exactly that. We bought the house 2 years ago. My income qualified us for the mortgage. I make significantly more than he does, which was never a thing I lorded over him or made into a dynamic. It was just a fact of our life. I paid the mortgage. He paid utilities and groceries and the car note. It was a system. It worked. Or I thought it worked. My cousin Rena is 29. She and I grew up 3 houses apart. She was the one who taught me to ride a bike, the one who held my hand through my parents' divorce when I was 12, the one I called from the hospital waiting room when Daniel's father had his heart attack 2 years ago because she was the person I called when things got hard. She was a bridesmaid at my wedding. She stood at the front of the room in a dusty rose dress and cried during our vows. She cried during our vows. I want you to hold that image in your head. We're going to come back to it. This past Friday started the way most Fridays start. Daniel left for work at 7:15. I have Fridays off. I work compressed hours, for long days, so I was still in my bathrobe when he kissed me on the cheek and told me he'd be home by 6. I had coffee. I had plans to clean out the spare room. I had a to-do list that included tracking down our tax documents from last year because we had an appointment with our accountant. My firm handles personal clients too, but I don't do my own taxes, conflict of interest, on Monday morning. Our tax documents live in a shared Google Drive folder. Daniel's W-2s, my income statements, the mortgage interest form, all of it. We set it up that way when we first got married because we thought shared finances meant shared access and shared access meant shared trust. I opened the laptop. I opened Google Drive. I went to the shared folder and I was scanning for the 2024 subfolder when I saw something I hadn't seen before. A folder titled Dashcam_uploads_April. New, populated with video files, named by date and time, strings of numbers that looked like something a security system would generate. I stared at it for a moment. I hadn't known it was syncing to the drive. Daniel had mentioned it 6 weeks ago, but it hadn't registered as something I'd ever interact with. I clicked the folder. 47 video files. I clicked one at random, a file from earlier in the week, a Tuesday, timestamped 10:47 p.m. My laptop screen stayed completely dark. Night driving, I realized. The front-facing camera wasn't picking up anything except the occasional sweep of headlights. The interior cabin camera, whatever it was capturing, was too dark to render. Just a black screen with a time code ticking in the corner. But the audio was crystal clear. I heard Daniel's voice first. That voice I had woken up next to for 4 years. That voice I had mapped completely. Every cadence, every register, the specific way he laughed when something caught him off guard. He was laughing. And then I heard the second voice. Rena. My cousin Rena. In my husband's car at 10:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, while I had been home assuming he was finishing up a late showing. I didn't close the laptop. I reached forward very slowly and I turned the volume all the way up. What I heard over the next 11 minutes is something I am going to do my absolute best to describe accurately, because I think it matters that you understand not just what they said but how they said it. The ease of it, the comfort, the way two people talk when they have been talking this way for a long time and have completely forgotten that the world outside their bubble exists. Rena's voice, warm and laughing. She has no idea, does she? Daniel, none. I'm telling you, she's completely checked out. She comes home, she does her little routine, she goes to bed. She doesn't ask questions. Rena, that's because she trusts you. Daniel, and here is where his voice shifted into something that made my stomach turn completely over. I know. It's almost too easy. I felt the heat rising in my neck so fast it was like someone had turned a dial. My vision went soft at the edges, not blurry exactly but smeared, like the world had lost resolution. My hands on the keyboard went cold and stiff, but I kept listening. What came next was worse. Not more dramatic. There was no big reveal, no single line that functioned as a knife. It was worse because it was so petty, so small, so casually cruel in the way that only people who have convinced themselves they're superior can manage. They talked about my weight. I'll say that plainly because I think softening it would be a disservice to what it actually was. They talked about my body the way you'd talk about a piece of furniture you're planning to donate, with mild contempt and a sense of relief at its future absence. Daniel did an impression of the way I walk. Rena laughed until she was breathless. I sat at my kitchen table in my bathrobe and I listened to my husband do an impression of the way I walk, and my cousin laughed until she couldn't breathe. I want to be honest about what that does to a person. I want to describe it accurately because I think women especially are expected to collapse inward when this happens, to crumble, to cry, to fall apart at the seams. And I did feel something collapse. I won't pretend I didn't. Something very old and very structural gave way inside me in that moment, something I had built over years out of love and trust and the belief that the people closest to you see you clearly and choose you anyway. But the thing that replaced it wasn't grief. Not yet. Not in that moment. It was focus. I am an accountant. I follow numbers. I find discrepancies. I build a complete picture before I draw a conclusion, and I present that picture calmly and without embellishment. I turned the volume up one more notch, and I kept listening. Stop. Hold on. Because that's when the real bombshell dropped. I had been sitting with what felt like the complete picture, the affair, the cruelty, the casual mockery, and I was already building my response in my head, already running through the steps I would take, when Daniel said something that changed the category of what I was dealing with entirely. The timeline's still April, right? He said. Before the fiscal year closes? Rena's voice shifted, less laughing, more focused. Businesslike, almost. Yeah. You said the joint account has what, around 60? 62, last I checked. She doesn't look at it. She does the mortgage from her personal account, so she never looks at the joint. And you can wire it without her seeing? I've done smaller amounts before to test it. She doesn't check the joint statements. She trusts the system. A pause. Then Rena, Dubai's expensive. We need most of it. We're taking all of it, Daniel said. Flat. Certain. Like he'd already made peace with it. She'll figure it out eventually, but by then we're on the other side of it. I'll deal with the divorce from there. She'll figure it out eventually. I stared at the black screen on my laptop. The time code kept ticking. In the background of the audio I could hear the road noise, the occasional click of a turn signal. $62,000. Our joint savings account. 4 years of deposits. My contributions, almost entirely, because I made more, because I was diligent, because I believed we were building something together. $62,000 that Daniel had already decided, in the front seat of his car with my cousin's hand probably in his, was their running away money. Dubai. Next month. She'll figure it out eventually. I closed the laptop very carefully, the way you close something fragile. I picked up my coffee mug and I carried it to the sink and I rinsed it out and I set it on the drying rack. I dried my hands on the dish towel. I stood at the sink and looked out the window at the backyard, the garden I had planted last spring, the patio furniture we'd picked out together, the lawn that needed mowing, and I took 3 very slow, very deliberate breaths. Then I went back to the laptop. I downloaded the MP4 file. I downloaded 4 others, spanning the last 2 weeks, because I am thorough, because I present complete pictures, and I moved them to a folder on my desktop labeled, with the specific dark humor of someone who has just had their life turned inside out, insurance purposes. Then I opened a new browser tab and I called my lawyer. Her name is Preeti and she has been my friend since law school. Her law school, my accounting program. We met in the library and bonded over both being people who read very small print very carefully for a living. She picked up on the second ring. Sarah, I need an emergency consult, I said. Today. Like, as soon as possible. A pause. What happened? I found a dashcam recording, I said, of Daniel and my cousin Rena. He didn't know it recorded audio. They're planning to drain our joint account and leave the country next month. Preeti was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Don't touch the joint account yet, she said. Don't confront him. Don't do anything until I tell you it's time. Can you come in at 2? I can come in at noon, I said. Noon, she said. Bring the files. I drove to Preethi's office with the audio files on a USB drive and a printed transcript I had typed up at the kitchen table in the 2 hours between the phone call and leaving the house. I am an accountant. I document. I arrived with a complete package, the files, the transcript, timestamps, a summary of the approximate account balance and the statement about Dubai. Preethi sat across from me and listened to 45 seconds of audio and then took her glasses off and set them on the desk. Okay, she said, here's what we're going to do. What we did, in Preethi's office that Friday afternoon, was thorough and legal and methodical. We drafted the emergency petition. We documented the evidence of planned financial fraud, because draining a joint marital account with intent to flee the country is not just cheating, it is fraud, and the audio recording made the intent explicit in a way that is, as Preethi put it, almost offensively clear-cut. We contacted my bank, our bank, and flagged the joint account with a legal hold pending the petition. Daniel could see the balance. He could not move a dollar. Then Preethi looked at me across her desk and said, is there anything else you want to do before Monday, or are you ready to proceed formally? I looked at her. I thought about the audio. His voice, comfortable and certain. She'll figure it out eventually. The impression of the way I walk. Rena laughing. I thought about the Dashcam. The device he had bought himself, installed himself, connected to the shared Google Drive himself, for insurance purposes. Actually, I said, there's one more thing. Preethi raised an eyebrow. Completely legal, I said. I just need to make a quick stop at the house before he gets home. Here's a thing you may not know about modern car stereo systems with Bluetooth connectivity. If your phone has previously been paired to a car, and the car is within Bluetooth range, many systems will auto-connect when the car is unlocked and the ignition is engaged. It's a convenience feature. It's very popular. Daniel's car was in the driveway. He was asleep. It was nearly 11 p.m. by the time I got home, and he keeps early hours, and he had no reason to suspect that anything in his world had changed yet. I stood in the driveway in the dark. I had my phone in my hand. I had the MP4 file queued up, starting at the 2-minute mark, past the early small talk, right to the part about my body, then the part about the account, then the part about Dubai. I connected to the car's Bluetooth. The car accepted the connection without complaint. I set the file to play at maximum volume on a 5-second delay. I walked back to the front door. I went inside. I went upstairs. I changed the front door lock, the one with the keypad, which Daniel had never bothered to learn because I always handled the entry codes from the app on my phone. New code, saved only to my phone. Then I went into the bedroom and I looked at Daniel asleep in our bed for a long moment, peaceful, utterly unaware, the face of a man who believes he has another 30 days of safety, and I thought about 4 years. I thought about the wedding. I thought about Rena crying at the front of the room in dusty rows. I went to the guest room. I closed the door. I set an alarm for 6:50 a.m., 25 minutes before he usually left for work. I slept better than I had expected to, not because I was okay, but because the plan was in place, the documents were filed, and there was nothing left to do before morning except let morning come. I was in the kitchen, dressed, with coffee, when I heard Daniel's alarm go off upstairs at 6:45. I heard him in the shower. I heard the familiar sounds of a man going through a routine he performed 1,000 times, the electric razor, the closet door, the shoes on the hardwood. He came downstairs and I was standing at the counter scrolling my phone. Morning, he said. He kissed my cheek. He poured himself a travel mug. You're up early. Couldn't sleep, I said. That was completely true. He didn't look at me carefully. He didn't look at me at all, really, the way people stop looking when they think they already know what they'll see. He picked up his keys, said, "Have a good day," and walked out the front door. I counted to 10. Then I heard it. He must have unlocked the car from the driveway. The Bluetooth connection would have established at that point. My phone still queued, volume still at maximum. He got in, the ignition engaged, and the stereo came to life. His own voice filled the car at maximum volume. I could hear it faintly from inside the kitchen, through the walls, through the closed front door. The quality was excellent. He'd bought a very good dashcam. It lasted maybe 15 seconds before the car door slammed. Then I heard footsteps, fast, not quite running but close, coming back up the front walk. The door handle rattled. He had his key. The key now opened nothing. A knock. Hard, flat-palmed. Sarah. His voice through the door was something I cannot precisely categorize. It wasn't quite angry and it wasn't quite scared. It was the voice of someone who has realized simultaneously that they have been caught and that they have been outmaneuvered, and hasn't yet chosen which emotion to lead with. Sarah, open the door. I walked to the door. I did not open it. I stood on my side of it. I can hear you, I said. Open the door. More controlled now. lowering into something that wanted to sound like authority. "We need to talk. There's a dashcam recording from Tuesday night," I said through the door. "You talked about my body. You talked about the joint account. You talked about Dubai. You talked about next month." Silence. "The account is frozen," I said. "Preeti filed this morning. The lock on the door is new. Your things are in a bag on the back porch." "Sarah," his voice cracked. Not with emotion, with calculation. Recalibrating. Looking for a new approach. "Listen, I know how this looks, but you have to let me." "I don't have to let you do anything," I said quietly, and my voice was so steady it surprised even me. "You bought the dashcam. You connected it to the shared drive. You forgot it recorded audio." I didn't know it recorded. "Insurance purposes," I said. "Your words." A long silence. "Sarah," quieter now, trying something softer, and it made my skin crawl in a way I hadn't anticipated, because I recognized it. It was the voice he used when he wanted to walk something back, and I had let it work on me before. "I'm sorry. I know what you heard and I know how bad that sounds. I need you to let me come inside and just." "Your bag is on the back porch," I said again. "Preeti will be in touch with you through your lawyer. Please make sure you have one." I stepped back from the door. He knocked 3 more times. Then he stopped. I heard him walk around the side of the house to the back porch. I heard him find the bag. I stood in the kitchen and I held my coffee mug in both hands and I breathed. He called twice that day. I didn't answer. He texted, first angry, then explanatory, then something that tried very hard to resemble remorseful. I read none of them in full. I screenshotted all of them for Preeti. Reena called once. From her name, in my phone, the contact I had saved years ago with a little heart next to it because that's what you do with the people you trust absolutely. I stared at her name on the screen for the full duration of the ring. Then I blocked the number. That was the hardest one. I won't pretend it wasn't. Because here is the thing about betrayal that nobody prepares you for. It's not one loss. Daniel leaving would have been a loss. A bad one, a real one, but a discreet and comprehensible one. What I was sitting with was not one loss. It was the retroactive revision of everything. Every conversation with Reena, every, "you deserve better," she'd ever said to me about previous relationships, every time she'd looked me in the eye at my own dinner table and said nothing. Every time she'd been in my house. The bridesmaid dress. The vows. She had stood at the front of my wedding and cried. I keep coming back to that. I think I always will. It is now Sunday. 2 days out. I am at my sister Nadia's house. She lives 40 minutes away. She drove to get me Friday night. She has spent the weekend alternating between making me eat things and looking at Daniel's texts over my shoulder and saying, "Absolutely not," in a tone that I have found genuinely comforting. The legal process is moving. Preeti says the evidence is strong. The financial fraud documentation is, her words, a gift I couldn't have fabricated. Daniel's lawyer has apparently already been in contact, which means he moved fast, which means he knew there was nothing to negotiate from a position of innocence. He hasn't tried to contact me since Saturday morning. I think he's been advised not to. I don't know what my cousin is doing. I don't know, and I've decided, at least for now, that I can't afford to wonder. There is a limit to how much simultaneous grief a person can hold and function inside of, and I've reached mine. What I do know is this. He bought the dashcam. He installed the dashcam. He connected it to the shared drive and told me it was for insurance purposes. For 6 weeks it sat in his car, recording everything, syncing everything, doing exactly what it was designed to do, while he sat in that car and said things he believed would never leave that space. He forgot about the audio. Or maybe, and this is the thought I keep returning to in the quiet moments, the thought I can't quite shake, maybe he just forgot about me. Forgot that I was real enough, attentive enough, present enough to look up from the tax folder and notice a new subfolder. She'll figure it out eventually. I figured it out on a Friday morning in my bathrobe. 11 minutes of audio. A dashcam he bought for himself. So here is what I want to ask you, and I want you to sit with it before you answer. Was the car stereo too far? Was I wrong to let him hear his own voice before he realized the locks had changed? Or did a man who called his wife clueless, who planned to steal $62,000 and disappear to another country, get exactly the kind of insurance he'd installed in his own car? Tell me, because I genuinely want to know where you land.
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.